Welcome to AstroTwins Radio, your cosmic GPS for life, love, and everything written in the stars. We're Tali and Ophira Edut, the AstroTwins, here to decode the astrology of the moment and help you navigate your destiny like a pro. Well, hello there, everybody. Tali and Ophi here together in New York City. It is the week of June 29th to July 5th. And what a day it already is, this Monday, June 29th. We decided to start recording just a few short hours before Mercury turns retrograde. That's happening today, a little bit after 1:30 Eastern, and it lasts until July 23rd. We also tonight at 7:57 p.m. Eastern have a full moon in Capricorn. There's only one.
Yes, and it's the last day of over a year of Jupiter in Cancer. Tomorrow, Jupiter, the planet of luck, abundance, opportunity, growth, is going into Leo until July 26th, 2027. So, Leos rejoice because your sluggish year is coming to an end, and
Leos.
they managed, a lot of them managed to still have a lot of fun despite it all.
But they were very kind of behind the scenes. Leos are going to get ready to emerge again in a new way. And then 4th of July weekend, for those who are in the United States, is fraught with some interesting air sign energy. Mars, the, fire starter, shit stirrer, is going to be conjunct Uranus, the planet of surprises, innovation, change, and trining Pluto in Aquarius. So Mars and Uranus are meeting up for the first time since the 1940s in Gemini, which could be both fun, adventurous, and a little bit accident prone. We're going to have to be careful about where we pop off those fireworks and who you spend time with. And Pluto bringing in kind of a transformational energy too. It's going to be an interesting week, so we're going to get into it talking about politics, pop culture, planets, and prophecies. So, where do we even begin? Let's start with Mercury retrograde. Oh, big old, panic always comes through. But let's actually talk about what happens when Mercury turns retrograde. We get asked that a lot. I feel like we often forget that people don't understand what it means. Do you want to be a little quick and dirty on that?
So there's a couple of analogies we like to use. So 3 to 4 times a year, Mercury will pass the Earth in its orbits and travels, and it's akin to being in a car when you pass another, or a train or a vehicle, and you pass another one that's moving at a different speed, and it looks like one of them is moving backwards because of the optical illusion. It covered a certain amount of ground through a sign, and then it goes retrograde. It reverses, goes back through the degrees it's already passed over. And then when the retrograde's over, it has to make those up again. So my metaphor that I like to use is you leave your house, drive halfway down the block, realize you forgot your wallet, turn around, drive back home, pick up the wallet, and then you have to redrive that same half block, and then you can keep driving forward toward your destination. So that's what a retrograde is like. It's a do-over, and the best usage of a retrograde is for the prefix re to review, revise, renew. Go back, review, quarterly review period, and make sure you didn't miss a detail or forget to do something or to finish what you started.
And this one starts at 26 degrees Cancer and moves back to 16 degrees Cancer. For the last couple weeks, we've already been in the retro shade period because Mercury hit 16 degrees Cancer already a couple weeks ago, and now it's moved all the way almost to the end. There's 29 degrees that a planet travels through of every sign, 30 degrees, but we count 0 as the first one. And so it's going to back up 10 degrees of that 30 degrees of Cancer and then have to go all the way back again, like Ophi just said. So if you have anything in your chart between 16 and 26 degrees,
Cancer. Yeah.
Cancer especially, but any other sign, there's going to be what's called an aspect. That's a more complex
You will
astrological.
feel it in that area, aligned with what that planet means. It's kind of interesting because here we are on the last day of Jupiter in Cancer. It's been there since June 9th of 2025. So we've seen a lot of growth, for better or worse, in Cancerian themed areas, women, home, family, homeland. Those have been words that have taken on not the greatest of meanings while Jupiter
The
was there.
xenophobia of it too.
Hmm.
Jupiter, we talked about this last week in our conversation we had with Stephen Forrest, who was a guest on our podcast. Though Jupiter is kind of known as a planet of luck and abundance, it can also maximize growth so much that we overshoot the mark. It can be overconfident, bloviating, very arrogant and doubled down too.
And
So,
triggering. I mean, we see this with a lot of we started with people like Pam Bondi and Kristi Noem and the Trump administration, like Erica Kirk of Turning Point. And, a lot of those women are no longer even there. Megyn Kelly, all these women, conservative women, because Jupiter can be very preachy as well, and even somewhat bigoted in its shadow expression, or extremely bigoted in their case. Um, but we have seen a lot, and we've also seen a lot of polarizing political figures, let's just say women on both sides. We have some new women in government who just won the elections in New York City, some Democratic socialists. So regardless of how you feel about them, these are polarizing on both the left and the right. Uh, Women politicians, which feels very in line with how Jupiter in Cancer would end.
yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene has left the
Oh yeah,
Republican Party. Megyn Kelly just made some horrible, had a horrible
racist.
monologue about Haitians go home. You didn't build this country. It's like, bitch, please. Neither did your Irish relatives. This
Right.
country was built by enslaved Africans, and let's just get real here. If you want to talk about who did the labor.
Well,
Now,
Jupiter is also very outspoken, and Cancer is the things that people have kept inside. So it's almost like the quiet part got said out loud for many people during this past year. The things that maybe should have been kept in your inside voice and scrubbed from your lexicon
or
got
or actually,
arrogantly expressed.
yeah, or having to reconcile with stories that you were told by your family,
Mhm.
As Jews, there's been a big reckoning for some in our community as we hold up many of the stories we were told about the formation of Israel, versus some of the things that actually were involved. We're sold a lot of propaganda, a land without people for people with no land, and Jews came in and made the desert bloom as if there was no one there, and there were just like these random people who didn't even have a culture or society, which is so far from the truth. And yet, this has just not been a focus. And, there's a lot about that I have so many feelings about, from anger to shame to frustration to confusion to empathy for the trauma and wounding of our people that created the state of Israel as a safe harbor. Why did we have to go and do to others what was done to us? So there's so much of
This
that
is
inner
very Jupiter.
reckoning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jupiter in Cancer has been like looking at the hard truth around home. And
Maybe fighting with
as
your
we're talking,
family about that, even too.
yeah.
A lot of internal rifts. We definitely have some hard and tough and heated conversations without consensus with our parents, who are children of Holocaust survivors and immigrants,
refugees. A lot of the anger is being expressed on the stolen land that we're on right here, the colonized
right.
land we're on here, and the United States being Cancer ruled, its birthday being the 4th of July, and coming up on its 250th birthday. Here, like just as Jupiter leaves and goes into Leo, we have Mercury retrograde in Cancer, really making us like, oh, you think you could just like move on to Leo? I don't think so. We're going to do some reflection. And with the Mars Uranus conjunction this weekend, which we'll talk about, there will be some fireworks going off and they won't
Oh,
just
yeah.
be in the sky.
Patriotism. I mean, I also want to point out that Jupiter in Cancer also shone a light on, cancers are nest eggs, our savings, the economy, housing, and a lot of the Democratic Socialist candidates are running on a platform that speaks to those very
Child care.
issues. Yeah. And Mamdani, who has a Cancer South node, he is really showing up, even though he's a man and Cancer is associated with women, but gender doesn't work like that anymore. It's he's really showing up as a voice for, the more protective, noble side of Jupiter and Cancer in many ways. He's focusing in on his home city. People keep trying to pull him into conversations about the Middle East and Israel and Palestine. He's focusing on New York. He's
On those
focusing on
kids.
housing. He just did a 2-year rent freeze so that, senior citizens don't keep getting these obnoxious, unaffordable rent hikes or people in lower income families. He's working on child care,
Universal child
building
care.
grocery stores, government-owned grocery stores. Jupiter in Cancer rules food. And one of the things, Daria, Eliza, you mentioned radical candidates on both sides. Daria Eliza Avila Chevalier, who is a Dominican American Sagittarius, one of the Democratic Socialist candidates who's been really whipping people up into a frenzy. Um, she's running on that platform, but a lot of the controversy around her is that she went to a Times Square more celebratory gathering that happened on October 8th.
And had a lot of controversial social media posts from earlier times that she's scrubbed. Now let's look at something. She's 32 years old, which means she's just out of her Saturn return and she's young. And this is what, we've been talking about, like the wake up call for a lot of people. The Democratic Party is divided. Now, Sagittarius, which is her sign, is ruled by Jupiter. So, of course, she's going to end up being kind of a lightning rod figure for this. To me, the truth that Jupiter and Cancer has left behind is that we didn't listen to young people. We didn't listen to working people. We shine the spotlight on these billionaire trillionaires. Here's Elon Musk at the other end of the Jupiter and Cancer. He's a Cancer and he became a trillionaire temporarily, not anymore. The SpaceX stock value dropped, but he was the first trillionaire during Jupiter's visit to his sign. What the wealth gap has widened
I
so
keep seeing the
noticeably.
billions, $1 billion budget, billion, it's like, okay, so all this money is just circulating. But yeah, as you said, that's why Democratic Socialists, cannot be ignored, nor should they. And I don't, I'm definitely a Democrat. I don't feel like aligning with a subset of anything right now, but I definitely feel more in that camp if I was forced to than in the mainstream toe the line corporatist Democrats. That's me personally. Everyone else have your opinion out there. It's just this is a time where we're going to see some interesting shifts take place over the next few
And this,
weeks.
yeah, and this podcast while you're listening and just this kind of role we have as astrologers, it's like I like to just put on my astrology hat and look at what's happening historically, comparing it to prior times in history that looked like this. Uranus and Gemini in the 1940s or the 1870s,
Which is also
Pluto and
weighing in
Aquarius.
very
Yeah.
much so. I mean, Uranus in Gemini, the word teenager was actually invented the last time Uranus was in Gemini in the 1940s. So, speaking to the youth, now that Uranus is in Gemini, there have been actually, I think the Paris student riots also happened in the 1940s. A lot of youth culture, the Zoot Suit riots, youth culture reigns during Uranus and Gemini transits. The muckrakers of the 1800s were also the ones who exposed all the corporate corruption. I think that the Democratic Party better decide if they're going to listen to young people or not. If not, they should just go join the Republicans in many ways. Now, a lot of this does come down to the intensity that's happening in the Middle East. And with Uranus and Gemini, youth movements are not to be ignored. A lot of the reasons that people are attributing Kamala Harris's loss was because she refused to really address Gaza. She didn't allow a Palestinian activist to speak at the DNC. It's a, this whole anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian language that we use out there is like, I think this is one of the shifts that's coming with Chiron, the healer, moving out of Aries and into Taurus. It's like the pro-anti is very Aries, and Taurus is more of like, what are your values? Are you a humanitarian? Do you believe in peace? Do you believe
What are you for
what
versus just against, basically?
yeah, what are you pushing for? What are you and if it's anti or one group and pro another, that combative Aries stance is we still have
Well, you're
time though.
reading
We
a
still
great
have
book.
time. Yeah, I was gonna say I'm reading, yeah. We still have a little more time with Chiron and Aries. It's only in Taurus from June 19th to September 17th. And it goes back into Aries until April 14th, 2027, then does another 6, 7 years in Taurus. So we're moving towards that. Um, yes, I am. I'm reading a really good book. It's called The Future is Peace. So Aziz Abu Sarah is a Palestinian and Maoz Inon is the Israeli. And after October 7th, so Aziz reached out with a letter to Maoz. He would write letters to all the people who were killed or hurt or had losses in the conflicts. He just kind of decided that that was what he was going to do. And most of the time, people wouldn't write him back, but Maoz did. And they've gone on to give talks. I think they created a TED talk together. And what I love about the book is that they'll take like a moment, like, and then they'll each share their family history. And they give each other the space to tell their side of the story. And of course, you hear the humanity that each family had the same worries, the same fears, different flavors of it, but we're all human. And I'm big into nonviolent communication, which is a system that was created by Marshall Rosenberg. For some, it might be radical, especially during this, the Saturn and Neptune and Aries firepower that's still going, but the idea is that you simply listen to the other side with compassion. And that's one of the hardest things to do. So I was kind of trying that on with Daria Eliza Chevalier. For her, October 7th, for Jews, it was the most horrifying thing, for her. and her fit, as an activist who went into the occupied territories, saw people having to go through checkpoints, heard stories of people, living as second class citizens, not being allowed into, their homes without giving up their passport. Like, do I agree with that? It doesn't matter in the space of nonviolent communication whether you agree or disagree. Now, it's much harder for me to do that
Well,
with
yeah.
a Trump or a MAGA person, but
And it's also hard to hold that space when you think about
yeah,
people being killed in their own homes and that people on October 7th who were killed were not all Jews. There were Arabs, there were Europeans, there were Americans, there were people from
tied.
all over the world, Asians, and that's what gets lost in those moments. So we're also with Pluto and Aquarius too, which is about this sort of detached idealism. What's getting lost so much is the human to human connection. This is what I see
Right.
just like in all of the infighting and the like it seems like the world is in one giant schoolyard fight with each
Well,
other.
it's like
And
no
that's
one
yeah,
should be killing anyone. No one should be celebrating anyone's
it's
death.
yeah, to hold the space of understanding how oppression can push someone to the brink of wanting revenge or not having empathy or sympathy because none has been given to them over the years in the most crucial parts of these one-way empathy battles and competitions. A lot of people, including maybe her, have gotten caught up in that. And there is something bigger. It's very hard. It's very hard to hold the space of being against a government, but then also, I always mention the Israeli news source Haaretz.com, which is the English version of it. It's their oldest newspaper. It's pluralistic and unbiased
Yeah.
and shows how people in Israel are not aligned with the government at all and how people are coming together. Where we're getting our news with Uranus and Gemini is so imperative now, and taking a hard line or position while is not going well for people, yet we have to have certain boundaries as well because it's I just want to just sum that up by saying it's gotten very, very complex to know where to stand. And the minute you find a place to stand, you also can see how where you're standing doesn't hold up in certain. So we have to be patient with ourselves and each other. And that's just not happening in a lot of ways, right? In
Or
so
we have to
many
go
ways.
beyond what we've done in the past because the
Yeah.
whataboutism will never end. That's something,
Yes.
one of the things that's interesting about listening to the future's piece is, Aziz, the Palestinian author, his older brother was put in an Israeli prison for throwing stones, and he was beat and kicked and you know, locked up in solitary confinement until he confessed to something that he didn't even do. And then he wound up dying in a hospital after being released because of the traumatic injury. So he had a loss. And then Ma'az lost his parents, who, he grew up on one of the kibbutzes. So you just, there's never an end. And that's what happens a lot of times when we've spoken to family members because they're so entrenched in it. It's like, well, what about the Holocaust survivors? And I get it, I really do, but I'm like, how do we how do we get ourselves out of this eye for an eye that is leaving the whole world blind? I mean, I find it hard to do here in the United States with MAGA. So this is all to say that, Mercury retrograde, interesting that it's bringing sort of this like back spin as we move out of. I feel like Jupiter and Cancer really fortified that these are my people. This is what I believe. I must align with my family. I must go along to get along. And I think Jupiter, really doubled down on that. But Mercury retrograde over the next few weeks may give people a period of time to really reflect. In Kabbalah, I was
Oh,
listening to
yeah.
David Guillaume's podcast, who I love, Ghiyyam. Ophi actually had him as a Kabbalah teacher
Back in 2011,
in
actually.
person in New York, but he's not with the Kabbalah Center anymore, but he's sharing the wisdom, and I just love how he does it in a very just real, down to earth, relevant way. But according to him, the next 3 weeks, right, are the kind of the a time to go in and reflect because there's a lot of yang energy because
Yeah,
of the
and it's
brightest
not even
days.
Kabbalah. It's actually so in Judaism, there's a day called Tisha B'Av, the saddest day of the year. It was the destruction of the temple, the ninth of the month of Av. And there are what are called the 9 negative days and the 3 negative weeks. So Kabbalah really talks about it in this very interesting spiritual kind of binary neuroscience-y kind of way. But the idea is that even though it happens during Cancer season, the feminine or yin actually kind of goes away, and we have this harsh masculine or yang energy during this time. So um during the 9 negative days and the 3 negative weeks. I think the weeks start July 2nd and the 9 days July 14th at the Cancer new moon, interestingly.
Hmm.
So the idea is you have to be a little more careful, slow down because that protective feminine energy is not there. That's how actually Rachel Schwartz, who used to be the Kabbalah Center astrologer, is a friend of ours. She's like, it's almost like the mother has left the house, the father's there. She's someone also great to follow. She's on TikTok and Instagram, and she's a Leo, so sure she's happy about Jupiter coming
Funny you should say that because the mother is kind of leaving the house with Mercury retrograde today.
and
But
Jupiter Cancer.
tonight we have a Capricorn full moon, which is the archetypal father. So there's just,
Yeah, that's
again, more
really the weird
polarizing there,
timing.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. So be careful because, what I've learned from Rachel and I have seen is like people can be a little more accident prone. They're not paying attention. They're not in their emotional centeredness. So be careful as you're driving, walking, traveling, lighting fireworks, whatever you're doing, slow down and pay attention to your surroundings. And just be careful about fighting and what you engage in, what you take in. I'm going to be using this Mercury retrograde period as a great time to do a lot of studying. I'm taking a class, a Harvard neuroscience of leadership class, and a little tantalizing tidbit next week. We are going to be opening the doors to our summer program, long awaited human design for astrologers, our introductory level course. And we're going to be offering actually a summer study bundle with our friend Helena Woods, who is an astrocartography expert and teacher. So you can do our human design course. It's going to come out at the end of July. It will be pre-recorded, but we'll have some live meetups, and we're going to bundle if you wanted to learn astrocartography, which is the study of your chart expressed on the world map. We're going to have a special rate where you can get both of them for summer learning. The reason we decided to do that is because with Chiron and Taurus now from mid-June to mid-September, there's Taurus is embodiment, and both astrocartography and human design are really about mapping your birth chart onto the body or onto the space and
The
place, the
land, yeah.
physical universe. And what in astrocartography, uh, the planetary placements express themselves as lines through different parts of the world, which can be really illuminating about a personal narrative. We're going to have a special episode that I recorded with Helena come out in a few days as well, where we teach them the principles of astrocartography, and I go through a personal narrative through my Saturn line in our chart and how that has shown up in some of the most profound ways, from our dad's birthplace to where he
That's
was
wild.
raised to like some of the most random places. And we went on these important family vacations from the Shenandoah Mountains to northern Michigan on down.
It's so wild when you start to learn this. And, these are that you really start to see in your chart, like where you live now versus where you want to live or where you have had experiences,
Yeah.
how the planets in your chart and the signs that they're in really color that experience for you.
And
And it,
we talked about, Helen and I talked about how Tali living in Seattle shifted her astrocartography map, and she has the influence of Neptune, which is very flowy there, where I on the East Coast, or when Tali's here on the East Coast, have a totally different kind of
our
like
lunar node, right?
go-getter. Yeah.
With human design, I like to call it somatic astrology. And we've been talking about the gates on our podcast every week. So, this course is going to not just tell you, oh, you're a 6-2 sacral generator with a right angle of identification, incarnation cross. Okay, thanks. What does that mean? What it's actually going to do is get into the underpinning of human design, which is astrology. Surprise, surprise. What a lot of people don't know is that in human design, you have two birthdays. You have your Earth birthday, your personality birthday, our December 2nd that we celebrate every year. 88 days approximately before that, 88 degrees of the sun, you have what's called your design birthday. So you actually have a second chart that we have a calculator that everyone in the class will get to use to find that exact chart. So human design takes those two birth charts. Ours is September 5th. So our design birthday actually makes us a Virgo, which is really funny because whenever people guess, for me at
Yeah, they
least,
asked me
guess
that
our
as a
sign. They're
Virgo
like, "Are
too.
you a Virgo?" Which I,
Yeah.
I take as a compliment because I like to be all organized sometimes too. So Sag and Virgo, actually, I found out that a really good friend of mine who's a Pisces has December 2nd as her design birthday. She's one of my astrology friends,
Oh,
and
she does too. Okay,
Stephanie
yeah.
Haling,
One of
who
my friends
contributes
too.
to our book every year too as a researcher. And we just like get together and we're like, we can't stop talking. So it's really fun. You'll be
Wow.
looking up everybody in your life. But human design takes those two birthdays, puts them on the astrology wheel. And then there's a second wheel, which is the 64 gates of the I Ching that wraps around it. And then those gates map onto the body. So your sun is
We're
in a
gonna
very
explain that
specific
to you.
place. Sun in Sagittarius maps to this gate, then maps onto your body. And what does that mean? And how does that make you who you are? What should you be protecting against if you have an open chakra? Where should you be, getting outside influence? Where should you be trusting your gut? I mean, there's so much to it, but
It's a lot of astrology is kind of, I say, like from the neck up. It's very cerebral, very metaphysical, but not physical. And what human design shows you is how your birth chart actually then plays into different chakras or energy center, and where you can actually almost experience a planet's influence in your body and in your energetic or auric field. So there's that. And actually, funny enough, I've often shared about my college boyfriend, Calvin, and his mom, who got me my first birth chart as a 21st birthday present. Well, Calvin's birthday is September 6th, and his was September 5th, which is our design date.
wow.
So the
Thank
people
you,
who
Brenda.
introduced us, yeah, Brenda, people who introduced us to astrology were actually linked to our human design. So you'll, of course, probably start to obsess over that. One of the funny things that's happened, and one of the reasons that it's taken kind of so long to produce this course relative to other ones we've produced, is because the second layer, we call it the double crust pizza of human design. The second crust of the pizza is the I Ching, as Tali mentioned. So that is an over 3,000-year-old divination system that contains 64 what are called hexagrams, stacks of 6 lines, either yin or yang. And there's 64 different arrangements of them possible that are related to 8 different elements: fire, earth, wind, thunder, mountains. And the creator of human design matched each of those to a small set of degrees of every zodiac sign. Too complex to talk about without a visual and really explain, but that's what we're going to be teaching in the course. So I have been also, it's interesting because the I Ching is about kind of has to be experienced. As I started to learn more about it to teach this properly, I learned everyone said the I Ching is purposely esoteric. It's like a riddle and it has to be learned by being lived. So we've been following the sun's journey through the gates. Actually, this week, it's
Yeah.
been a full year. So we're just
Wow.
completing the whole revolution of the sun through the gates. And I remember
Well, why
because,
not talk about this week's gates early, and then we'll go on to Jupiter and Leo, because
yeah,
since we're on the subject of human design.
yeah, it's very interesting to see because this was almost used, of course, it's 1111 as I'm saying this, right? The I Ching was used like tarot to it's the book of changes, and it was only brought into the West in the 20th century. Actually, Carl Jung wrote the introduction to the original translation
Hmm.
and had to grapple with his own Western mindset as he looked at, wow, why does this work? I can't explain this with my science background. So he just actually just gave up trying as one does when we start to get into mystical things. So, what's interesting about human design is that this divination system that was used to try to understand a moment of what was happening, get greater insight into it, is now mapped onto your self perception. And so, the matching of that and using it as a kind of like a facet of yourself and your personality, your soul is also an interesting adaptation too. And we're going to teach that in the class too, how to really understand the kind of esoteric philosophical riddle of each of these 64 hexagrams through your chart and your life purpose and mission. So this week, actually, let's talk about that. The sun travels through 5 minutes and 37 degrees of every 30-degree sign is matched to a gate. So we're in the gate of stillness until Tuesday. That was June 26th through 30th. The gate of, it's very much about just that kind of mountain sort of just being. And I noticed it was very abrupt because
Yeah, I haven't
we
been very social at all this
no, I
week.
barely wanted to go out. I mean, we just finished Gemini season. Uranus was in Gemini too. So it was this frantic, exciting, oh my God, nonstop, go, go, go. And then it just like we hit the gate of stillness and it was like ground to a halt. It was almost like whiplash.
It really did feel like that. It was like, what, Nick's parade? Wait, was that
Right.
last year? I don't know.
I know. It just feel yeah, exactly. Like Gemini season felt like it lasted for 2 months, if not longer. And from June 30th till July 5th, the sun is going to be in the gate of provocation.
What
So,
does that mean?
which is interesting because Mars just went into Gemini, and Gemini is kind of that devil's advocate. So it's really that energy of like poking. It's being playful, but kind of teasing, provoking. I mean, you can see that happening with the news and people, firing off on each other and that kind of
Well, you
thing.
know where that's really happening, although it's starting to is Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce's wedding. Let's talk
Ooh,
about that
yeah.
for
All
a
right.
minute,
All
but
right.
which obviously did not consult an astrologer if they're doing it during Mercury retrograde. However, I was thinking about
And a
that. She
Mars.
always has. It's so apparently there is uh Madison Square Garden has been confirmed as booked by them. Such a bizarre
So
place. I
weird.
mean, Jupiter and Leo is interesting. So Jupiter goes into Leo Tuesday of this week. So of course, this celebrity who's been low key for a minute comes back out. Dua Lipa, who's a Leo, got married in a very understated way at City Hall or Town Hall in London
I
during
feel like she
Jupiter
gets
and
everything
Cancer.
right.
And then she did her Italian wild and crazy dance celebration, but it was still like off away from the paparazzi in Italy. Now, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are setting themselves up for a logistical nightmare. Mercury retrograde in Cancer. How are you going to guarantee privacy for your celebrity guests? Maybe that's not the point. Um, I'm sure they've got it worked out. Maybe they're landing helicopters on a roof or doing something, but it's going to be a spectacle. This is New York City.
How many people need to come to this wedding that they need a
Well, they had a
stadium?
thousand person, like it was like reserved for 1,000 people. So I
Oh,
have no idea what that is. That's what I read. Um, and then there was this like, are they doing the Rhode Island mansion? Or are they doing this? I think that they're going to whisk guests to the Rhode Island mansion afterwards, maybe on a private plane.
whisk.
Right.
Does whisking happen during Mercury retrograde?
Right. Attempt to whisk people because she does have her July 4th Tay-Merica parties. She didn't do one last year, but remember how she would always, have like Selena Gomez and Carly Kloss and all these Lena Dunham would be there and they'd like this happened. The last big one was last time Jupiter, or maybe it was the first one, was when Jupiter was in Leo last time. 2014, there were all these like everyone dressed up in their matching bathing suits at the pool. I think it was one of the first girl gang moments. So Jupiter in Leo is already
Taylor's.
threatening to show up again. Taylor Swift. Yeah, she invited everybody for this,
I remember that
everybody
now, unfortunately.
everybody who was anybody in her world, and I think they took a picture with like an American flag because we could be ironic like that because it was the Obama era, pre-Trump. Um, so yeah, she's really, really going hard with defying Mercury retrograde with this wedding, I would
And a
say.
Mars-Uranus conjunction on the wedding weekend, like in
Mhm.
Gemini.
I know.
I predict lots of paparazzi press leaks here and
Maybe
some
that's the
serious
point.
gossip
Yeah, this
emerging from this wedding.
interesting, very interesting. Now, let's get back to Jupiter in Leo, because the last time that happened, the last two times, had some interesting things going on.
Have you noticed how many times we've said interesting as our
I mean, I
adjective
don't know what
today?
else to yeah.
When an astrologer says interesting, listen up. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Jupiter in Leo, we're gonna have to wait a few weeks before the No Kings rallies begin because July 26th, the South Node, the karmic correctional South Node, will join Jupiter and Leo. Although the South Node goes retrograde, so it's starting all the way at the end at 29 degrees, and Jupiter is at 0 degrees at the beginning, so they have to take
To
their
meet in the
time to meet
middle
in the middle, which is going to take a few months
next year.
here
Yeah.
next year. But one thing that has been in the news is that Prince Harry is returning to the UK. Another Mercury retrograde moment. Maybe Charles, he's dealing with cancer. Um, but there's a whole to do like, Meghan, Archie, and Lilibet were supposed to come, but the palace has denied them police protection, which is so petty.
Wow.
But, petty
Yeah,
on petty
royals are going to be in
crimes.
the news with
Yeah.
Jupiter in the South Node
And
in Leo.
we actually predicted in our 2026 horoscope book that Harry might resume some royal duties. He and William are not talking.
They need the
William is
money.
iced out. Maybe, I don't, he misses it. I'm sure, they really burn those bridges hard. Um,
It's interesting because that's another. So William is a Cancer. So he's
and
got
Megan's a
Jupiter.
Leo,
Megan's
so
a
she might
Leo.
find a way to get there, um, or turn it into another,
Or it's
God
like,
knows
with
what.
Jupiter in her sign, it's a time that she might be alone a little more independent. So she may not actually. And for him as a Virgo, Jupiter in his solar 12th house is a time of ending transitions. It's probably not going to be the easiest time. It is a time to make amends, though. So he may end up reconciling with his family for himself, but
Well, he's
she
41,
won't.
right? He has a Neptune square right now. When you turn 40, Neptune which moves very slowly through the chart, has gone about 90 degrees away through the zodiac wheel from where it was when you were born. And that's a time where you have to look at all the illusions, look within, see where you need to surrender some of your ego, some of the things that maybe lift the veil on your, it's easy to blame the other person, but lift the veil on your own part in the matter and look within.
He's
So,
also going into his Uranus opposition, which is the
oh,
astrological
right.
midlife crisis. He's got Uranus in Sag, I think 7 or 8 degrees. And he has
Mm.
Chiron at 7 degrees Gemini, I believe, around there, which means Uranus is going to go over his Chiron as he has his Uranus opposition. So in his sixth and 12th houses. So translation, I think it may relate to his father's illness. And also his desire to return to a life of service. I mean, that
He's a
was what his
Virgo.
life was about for a long time. And I don't know that he's been able to do that quite as much in the glam bubble of Montecito. I'm sure they go to plenty of charity events, but it's still a bit not that
He's a
he,
lot of plays a lot of polo.
yeah, I mean,
Rumor has it.
yeah. So I feel like that Uranus opposition is going to confuse him about where he belongs and stands and fits
Especially with
in.
like Sagittarius and Gemini, like having these two worlds, one
Yeah,
far
yeah.
away.
One local, yeah.
Now, Jupiter and Leo, actually, the last time Jupiter and Leo, Beyonce came out onto the VMAs stage with the feminist sign flashing. She's been getting some flack, but
We actually met Beyonce 2 Jupiter and Leo
oh,
cycles
right.
ago at the Billboard Music Awards.
Oh, that was
And
Jupiter and
that
Leo.
was Jupiter
When
and
we got to do
Leo.
her first reading and Jay-Z. Now she
Mhm.
just, I think it was last week, did a video for her sacred hairline where she was
Oh God, it was for her
undoing
hairline.
Jay-Z's he grew his hair out into locks. And it was a good story, actually, because
Well, don't you?
Blue Ivy got a lot of flack, a lot of racist flack about her hair. I watched the video this morning because everyone's coming down hard on her, and I thought it was pretty beautiful. I mean, yes, it was a marketing campaign, but her products and the picks and combs are made, and conditioners are made to celebrate black hair. And, you know, corporate or not, it was she really talked about how people came after Blue Ivy for Blue felt, started to feel ashamed of her hair. So Jay grew his hair out to supposedly show her that her hair was beautiful, and this whole line is developed because of that. So anyways, that it was a
It's
nicely done.
interesting, like how much, like we've got the court of public opinion that decides
But then
things.
Jay-Z re-released his Reasonable Doubt album with Target. So like,
Yeah, it's just this is what keeps
again,
happening. It's like if these celebrities who, with Jupiter and Leo, they are in the South node, they're gonna be under the microscope. So
it was a closest.
if every heartwarming statement they make is accompanied by a product launch, an album
Exactly.
drop, a line, it's like just do something that's not transactional if you really
Exactly.
want people's trust. Yeah, remember when we met
Very, very true.
Beyonce,
As
she
much as
was,
the video, and it was also a soft statement. Like there's an article in New York Magazine about what you can see Trump's influence by how quiet celebrities are being. No one's talking about ICE detention centers. No one's talking about that. And in fact, in Texas, uh, to create an example, these two Trump and Bush nominated judges just gave some protesters a year ago, July 4th. There was a group of protesters who, protested outside of uh, a Texas ICE detention center, and they've been given these ultra harsh sentences.
30
30
to
years,
50 years.
50 years was given to the husband of one of the protesters who moved a box of left-wing zines that they were distributing. Meanwhile, January 6th, the protesters all got immunity. I mean,
It'll be fought, but yeah, it was to make an example and scare people into silence. So this is the dystopian upside down world that we're living in right now and going into with, you know, the North Node going into Aquarius, which is activism with this Mars Uranus conjunction this weekend. There's a lot of unleashed anger.
I think Leo celebrities are already being thrust in the spotlight. Funny enough, two Jupiter and Leo cycles ago, there were two very obnoxious Leos, Bennifer 1.0 with Ben Affleck rubbing J-Lo's booty and giving her the pink diamond in the Jenny from the Block video. Just all sorts of like, and now Jennifer Lopez, a few days ago, Max and Emmy, her twins, graduated from high school, but she was bragging that they got into all five colleges they applied for and each got one scholarship. Why do your kids need a
Oh, God.
scholarship? Like, I understand an academic scholarship maybe makes them feel less like Nepo babies, but they're Nepo babies and they're awesome, but like, come on, like, they don't let someone else get the scholarship for God's sake. I mean,
Right.
that was also
Take the
Charlie.
achievement award,
Yeah,
pay full tuition.
exact.
You
I mean,
can't
I'm sure they are, but it was just like, wow, like, come on.
clueless.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Charlie XCX has been, surfacing saying she's been feeling depressed over the last year. Like dance music is dead, but Charlie, hang in there. Jupiter and Cancer really did bring down the mood for your
Yeah, I
sign.
feel like we should do a little Leo roll call
Yeah,
because
let's
a
do it.
lot of Leos. So, with the South Node being kind of the karmic shadow, and then Jupiter being the highest ideals, an invitation to express those at least. Like, we're going to see a full spectrum of Leos. So, on the one hand, in the villainy shadows, we have JD Vance, who's going around with his book Communion, trying to, and patting his wife on the knee and just being the biggest.
Admitting to having attachment issues. You don't say.
Oh
You've
God.
changed your name and religion 3 times. Let Erica Kirk run her fingers through your hair and you basically have a knee pat for Usha. Come on.
Yeah, so he's, hopefully the South Node can bring some Leos underground in the underworld where maybe they need to do a little time. Here's hoping he's one of them. Now, who we're excited to see emerging? Dua Lipa, I believe she's working on some new music. Madonna, who has some new music and was seen with Charlie XCX DJing at a YSL party and dancing. And more Madonna. We're ready for her and her Kabbalah wisdom. Obama,
He has a
he's a
library now.
library. He's executive producing
And
a
the
show with Larry David, who's a Cancer, passing the Jupiter
and the
baton.
Trump Tower Street, Wabash Ave in Chicago has just been renamed Barack Hussein Obama Avenue.
Really?
So now Trump
Ooh.
has to, the Trump Tower there is now located on Barack Hussein Obama, as he
Oh,
loves to
I love
say.
it. Love it. A Leo who I think we could maybe see a little less of personally, Kylie Jenner, who was just seen shilling for Meta, wearing the Meta glasses and acting
A
like they were fat.
surveillance
Yeah.
device.
Yeah, she was I don't know if it was at Cannes or somewhere else, but she was with Mark Zuckerberg and they were showing off the glasses. Now
See a
these
lot less of her.
yeah, it's like these glasses are there for surveillance as well, to collect data on people as well. So just we don't need another Kardashian anything. So
Your eyes
thanks.
aren't good enough. Jesus.
Yeah. So, I thought she and Timothy were cute at first. I hadn't really done my homework, but ever since he just like said that idiotic thing about ballet being,
No one goes to the ballet or opera
right,
anymore.
right. I was like, oh, he's just a
I
little
told you a
arrogant
couple weeks
kid.
on the podcast how annoyed I was. Just what? Yes, you're a Knicks fan, but you have to make yourself the ultimate. You have to take. He like this video of him like ripping his shirt off and celebrating with the team. No, you're not on the team. Stand back. No
Oh, I
one
know.
cares. Like you've aligned yourself with the Kardashian Jenners. It says so much about who you are. So sit down. I've
Hmm.
never liked him.
No, I guess.
I don't know. Everyone was like Timothy Chalamet a few years ago. I'm like, okay, millennial pink too. Well, Leos, there's lots of space for you to put your name, to write your name. I'm going to give Taylor a little bit of a break. Write your name in that blank space. You've been flying under the radar. I'm curious for some new Leos to step forward. I'm sure we'll see some on the political stage.
Leos, June 30th, 2026 to July 26th, 2027. Jupiter is in your sign. Make good use of it. It's like, it's not always necessarily like easy and light, but it's like this fresh start. You're at the beginning of a new 12-year chapter. We all are. And in our monthly horoscopes, which will be out tomorrow, you will see what Jupiter is going to be bringing to you, or in our 2026 horoscope book. So yeah, it's a reboot. The mid-year reboots are starting, and while Mercury goes retrograde. So we're ready for it.
But
Ready for it.
look back, if you on a personal note, this Capricorn full moon tonight at 7:37, it'll linger on. I think personally, you get a good 2 weeks until the next new moon to really harvest and manifest from it. But definitely the next few days. Um, Dates back, kind of goes back to the January 18th new moon in Capricorn. That was also happening on the very last day of Capricorn season.
Mhm.
And so this is kind of a mid-year check-in. What did you say you were going to do that you weren't going to do, or that's shifted or pivoted? I mean, we've been working on the human design for astrologers, and by the way, you don't have to be an astrologer to take the course. You just have to be into astrology. You'll
It's going to teach it from an astrology centered perspective so that you really can understand how parts of your birth chart, which you're already familiar with, map out onto your body and give you this extra layer of esoteric protection and wisdom and insight into yourself during this summer. That's a little slowed down. Now, one other Mercury retrograde in Cancer, the water sign thing that's happened, that bears discussion, is Trump's reflecting
Oh,
pool, the
right.
green algae
It's
nightmare that
been
it is.
cleaned up supposedly for the most part. And it's so like he skipped over protocol and hired his buddies green water construction, ironically. Not ironically, how ridiculous is that? Yeah, they didn't put the bubblers in. And then there's like that, you know, push ozone into the water and destroy the algae. I guess the pool is now clear, but there's like
How
a
many
rip in the
billion?
lining, and he's trying to accuse Antifa of that. And just the
Oh,
doubling down on the lies. And then it's just, I mean, it just
it's
says it all.
ridiculous.
And his Timu state fair that he had, and his abject failure of a UFC fight. I mean, it's just
Vanilla
been
Ice and Cash Patel's girlfriend performing, real headliners there. So
I
we
can
really
remember
live
her
in
name,
multiple
Cash, now
realities.
Cash Patel's girlfriend. You don't even, yeah,
It's not worth remembering to me, but I mean, here's
Amber or Ashley or one of those kinds of
one of
names
those.
like
Now,
that.
oh, which you just reminded me of a Leo who's emerging, Ashley St. Clair,
Hey,
the
she's a
ex
Leo.
of Elon Musk, who has been she's been posting these makeup videos talking about how was an ex-MAGA influencer for 10 years who saw the light, apologizing to the trans community and anyone else, and just like telling all the tales
She's
of what
also
she's seen. She's a Leo.
she's also one of Elon's baby mamas.
No, yeah,
So
yeah.
she has his child. She's been on a media tour. She went on I've Had It with Jennifer Wells. She went on, I think she went on
She
John
is
Lemon.
ruthless in the best ways a Leo can be ruthless. So I was just watching her this
Well, she's
morning.
telling the truth. And there's an
Yeah.
example of somebody
I
who,
mean it in a
as
good way. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's an example of someone who kind of goes back to what we were saying before about being about your values rather than about a party line. It's like she was hardcore MAGA. She's not declaring herself, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat. She's saying, I can't sit on this truth, this, and so I'm going to share my experience and my truth. And I feel like that is, and now we're listening to it. I mean, isn't
And I think she's born in like 1999 or
nine, I think
something.
so.
Yeah, she's like
I mean, she's
seven.
25,
Yeah,
27. Oh my God,
26. Yeah, almost 27. So yeah, I think
that's
she's
crazy.
born around the time that the South Node goes into Leo. So it's fascinating because people are like, aren't you scared for your life? She's like, I've protected all the intel that I have if anything happens to me. So I'm like, you know what? She really is holding a
She
lot of
must have
power.
an Aquarius South Node, Leo North Node, so
Yeah.
she's going to be going into her nodal
Ooh.
opposition
Oh yeah,
because
she is.
1999, that was a year.
Yeah,
So
you're right. She is. So she's one to watch in this Leo era too. One of the interesting things that caught my attention over this past week and over the past couple months is a backlash against what's being called the girl boss. And I have mixed feelings about it that I think are worth looking at as the sun and Jupiter leave Cancer. Well, the sun is in Cancer. As the sun is in Cancer, as Mercury goes retrograde in Cancer, Jupiter leaves Cancer, which is about women. And we have a full moon in Capricorn, which is kind of the boss zodiac sign. So um, there's as the wealth gap widens, we've been in this industry for a long time of kind of spiritual marketing or meaningful marketing, teaching people how to, market themselves or build businesses in a more meaningful way. We've taken a lot of classes from some of the
putting
people.
soul in your goals.
Yeah, we've taken classes and learned things from some of the people who have succeeded in this industry. But as the wealth gap widens and we move into this new kind of era where people are voting Democratic Socialist and wanting a more humble, less Kardashian bubble world, they don't want that out of touch world. Some of that is ready for an upgrade. So there was an interesting article in the Cut about a girl boss, what was it, getaway or something like that, where it
Hmm.
was a female founders. They all
The
got,
girl boss bash or
yeah, it was
something.
like, so on the one hand, maybe it's a lot of women and a lot of our followers are kind of with a wary eye. Women are over marketed too, let's just say. But what's happened in the critique to that, and I found that with this article in the Cut, which is a snarky publication to begin with, is that a mere mention of something really important was made and stepped over, which is that women get less than 2% of all venture capital funding for their companies. Women of
Wow.
color, less than 0.5%. We are still it's so easy to pile on women. And this was happening simultaneously while Turning Point was having there was this women's leadership summit where all these women came and talked about um, traditional Christian values and like were encouraged to have more babies like than they could afford.
Yeah, that's a new
While
talking point.
right,
Sean Duffy, that idiot from Real World
yeah.
Seattle, unfortunately, or
Mhm.
San Francisco. I don't know which one it
And
was.
Rachel Campos, they met on Road Rules, the MTV reality show. They were both Rachel Duffy, his wife, was the one who was shacking up with
She
Puck.
was obsessed with the bike messenger
Yeah.
loser, like
Anyone remember like
crazy guy. And then she
YouTube?
wound
Yeah.
up like dating the conservative asshole who's now in charge of transportation. He's a transportation secretary. Pete Buttigieg's job, yet has zero experience. Anyways, I digress.
Well, they were an example for sure of that. So,
Oh yeah, he basically was just he's been getting trashed as well because he talked about the ridiculously bad Trump performers. He's like, they're better than any of these libtard
oh my God.
yeah.
Did he literally use
He
that
used the word
word?
libtard and they have
They
a
have
special needs child
yeah, there's
as
their
well.
youngest daughter. On the one hand, we have Turning Point calling it a women's leadership summit and telling women to live these traditional lives, stay home.
Wasn't it curated for
Yeah.
her? Holistic, empowered, and
Yeah,
redeemed.
yeah. Oh my God. I mean, but just like with democratic socialism, this is a movement that is gaining a lot of following and traction. So
Well, not
we
as
have to
much as you think, though,
eh,
actually.
yeah, there are a lot of people turning to religion, young people, as well as to democratic socialism and other movements. It's like it's not the same
What's so
space.
crazy about it is if these people have more babies than they can afford, they better start voting Democratic Socialist because they're not going to be able to feed their kids. They're going to need some
Right.
social services in order to afford these kids that they can't afford. And they're not going to get it from Erica Kirk and the Republicans who are enriching themselves in their own bank accounts. Now there's, let's Howard
It's
Lutnick, who's out
cancer.
there. He's from Cantor Fitzgerald. He's the Treasury Secretary. His sons and Trump's sons are, making all sorts of deals. The latest one is in Kazakhstan, where
Wow.
there's all the yeah, a minerals deal that is with the government, but through this private equity that goes right back to the Trumps and,
And that's
the
what's
Lutnick.
happening with
So
these weapons of mass distraction, which with all the infighting of marginalized groups and, just the distraction and the opiate of the masses, religious, conferences for women. I mean, it's it is giving rise to feminism, that's for sure, because there's so many women who are speaking out who were trad wives.
I think what a lot of people want to see from the girl bosses, from the celebrities to bring it all home is like
Values. What do you care about? What do
values.
you
We don't want
stand
to be,
for?
I don't care about your 8-figure launch. I don't care about your hair care products. If you can't tell me what you believe in, if you can't say, one of the other most
What are you
horrific
doing
things
with
that
that
have
money?
happened with Jupiter and Cancer is the building of all these ICE detention centers and
Yeah.
corporate prisons, So, like, what do you stand for? You're not willing to speak
Data
out.
centers,
You're not willing
prisons.
to have an opinion, show critical thinking.
And we
Then
and
why should
yeah,
I support you? And that's just a question, I know it's scary, like I also want to say that, with you see these protesters like getting killed in Minneapolis, Alex Preddy and Renee Good, and then you see people in Texas being locked up for decades. It is scary. So I
it's
get that,
scary to
but
speak
because
out, but staying
people
silent. Also, it's like if you're telling
stay
me,
silent alone and without people in a coalition. See, Mamdani is a really good example. He's got a coalition behind him. He keeps a smile on his face. He's obviously a debate team captain. He knows how to turn the subject in a different direction. He's an
yeah,
effective change maker,
and to
which
bring it back to his main platform and the issues, which is, I feel like, the people are being lumped into the girl boss. What's sexist? There's so many things that are sexist about calling them that. First of all, they're not girls. They are female founders and they have a right to do with their money whatever they want, just like
and
male
they're doing
founders and
great things at that.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 But a lot of them, what they're showing us are the dream homes they've built, the closets, the wardrobe, and that's great. But why not if you built your platform on meaningful business and brought all of these people who have strong values and connection to making the world better into your funnels and companies, like
making money and then going and doing good for yourself and your family and social good and staying engaged in the world that actually helped you get there. That's what I'd love to see more of.
Yeah.
Disconnecting from the world is going to be a lot harder at the end of July when the North Node moves out of Pisces, which is escape, into Aquarius, which is community, togetherness, technology. So, float on for these 3 weeks of Mercury retrograde in Cancer. But you know what? It's going to be an interesting time. I'm looking forward to the second half of the year. The first half of the year there's been a lot of great things and a lot of intense things. But the ability to just delude and dilute is kind of coming to an end. So
and if you are someone who has a business or you've taken your expertise and skills, as we have, and turned them into what you do for a living, great. I think it's just about really staying in touch and engage with the people that you serve. It's not about, we were fed during Pluto and Capricorn for many years, 2008 to 24, like the 4-hour work week and make your money and tap out and go get chickens. Again, feel free to do that if that's what you love. It's a free country here, supposedly, but
our nervous systems do deserve protection, but that might happen from spending less time on social media, curating your news feed, but also staying aware and creating coalitions, finding coalitions that align with your values. And we don't know the exact formula for that, but we'll be exploring that with you week by week on the podcast. So this is a good place to go off into our days.
Edit this thing before Mercury
retrograde. Only like an hour left, but we'll make it happen. Now, our human design for astrologers and course, as well as the bundle with Helena Woods' newly designed Astrocartography course will be available for registration next week, but you can already get your name on the waiting list. If this interests you, we'll drop that link in the show notes.
Or go to astrostyle.com/HD2026 and add your name. And as soon as we open that up, we will email you and give you an invitation to join and whatever special.
All right. Batten down the hatches, strengthen your passwords. Delay that contract signing if you can until after July 23rd when Mercury goes direct. Try not to get into a fight with your family. Make sure the door is locked before you leave the house. So those are all our Mercury retrograde advisories for Mercury retrograde in Cancer. And just be aware, just stay aware. Slow down a little and you'll be fine. Thanks for tuning in to AstroTwins Radio. If today's episode gave you an aha moment, we'd be over the moon if you left us a 5-star review. It helps fellow astrology lovers find us. And make sure to hit subscribe and follow us on iTunes and Spotify so you never miss an episode. Want the full visual experience? You can also watch the video version on our YouTube at AstroTwins-TV. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at AstroTwins and head over to astrostyle.com to read your free daily, weekly, and monthly horoscope that we write for you with love. Until next time, move with intention and let the universe meet you there.